Welcome back, everyone. Before we dive in, make sure you drop your thoughts and the lessons you took from this story in the comments. And don't forget to like and subscribe. Let's get into it. My name is Alexis Morgan, and I am 34 years old. The night everything finally snapped for me, I was standing under a chandelier in a rented event hall in Atlanta, holding a pastel pink gift bag I did not want to give at a baby shower I did not want to attend. The hall was beautiful in that curated, intentional way. Pink and white balloons floated in clusters near the ceiling, ribbons trailing like soft vines. A dessert table groaned under the weight of macarons, cupcakes, and a towering white cake decorated with tiny gold baby footprints. Soft music played from a speaker in the corner, and every table was covered in glittering blush sequins. I was the only one there who did not seem to sparkle. My ex-husband, Brandon Mitchell, stood across the room holding a glass of sparkling cider, laughing too loudly at something a guest had said. His hand rested on the lower back of his girlfriend, now pregnant fiancée, Candace Powell. She wore a fitted rose-colored dress that hugged her belly, one hand cradling the curve like a trophy. People milled around them, offering congratulations, hugging Candace, slapping Brandon on the back as if he had achieved something remarkable. From where I stood near the edge of the crowd, I felt like I was watching a show in which I had once been cast as the lead, and now I was a forgotten extra. I still did not fully understand why I had agreed to come. On paper, it made no sense. Brandon and I had finalized our divorce 6 months earlier. There was no requirement, legal or otherwise, for me to be in this room. But his sister, who had once been like family to me, had called in tears and said, "Please, Alexis, it would mean a lot if you showed you are at peace with everything." At peace. As if peace was something you could manufacture by forcing yourself to smile through humiliation. I shifted my weight in my heels, feeling the thin strap press into my ankle. I wore a simple emerald green dress that hit my knees and a pair of gold earrings my mother had given me years ago. My hair was smoothed back into a neat bun, makeup carefully done. I looked composed. I did not feel that way. "Alexis, you came." The voice to my left made me turn. It was Brandon's mother, Evelyn, holding a plate of mini quiches. Her eyes swept over me, assessing, the way they always had. "You look well." "Thank you," I said. "You look well too." My voice sounded steady, which felt like a small miracle. "How are you?" "Excited," she said, her gaze drifting toward Candace and Brandon. "I am finally going to have a grandchild. You know how long I have wanted that." There was a faint shade of reproach buried under her words. A familiar tune played softly but clearly. I swallowed down the response that rose to my tongue, the one about multiple miscarriages and sitting alone in a bathroom, holding a negative test while Brandon worked late. "Congratulations," I said instead. "I am happy for you. It all worked out for the best," Evelyn continued, as if she were narrating a moral lesson. "Some people are meant to be mothers, some are meant to focus on their careers. Both are valuable. You have your work. Candace has this." She gestured toward the baby decorations, the cake, the belly. "Yes," I said quietly. "We all have our paths." Before she could respond, a high-pitched voice called out from near the throne-like chair set up for the guest of honor. "Everybody, can we gather around for a toast?" It was Candace, standing and gently tapping her glass with a spoon. "I want to say something." A murmur of movement swept through the room as people drifted toward her. I tried to stay near the back, but somehow the tide of bodies shifted, and I ended up closer to the front than I wanted to be. Brandon caught my eye for a second, surprise flickering across his face before his mouth tightened. "First," Candace said, placing a hand dramatically over her heart, "I want to thank everyone for being here to celebrate our little miracle." She looked at Brandon with theatrical affection. This baby was not planned, but sometimes the best things in life are surprises. There were soft chuckles, murmurs of agreement. Someone shouted, "Say that again," and laughter rippled. "When Brandon and I met," Candace continued, "he was going through a difficult transition. It is not easy to close a chapter, especially a long one. But we found each other at the right time. He needed someone who believed in him, who saw his potential as a father and as a man, and I am so grateful I get to be that person." The words hit me like small, precise darts. Brandon stared down at his glass. He did not stop her. I felt my heart beating in my throat. Part of me wanted to walk out of the room right then, but my feet stayed rooted to the spot, as if my body knew that leaving would be seen as weakness, and I had already given these people enough of that. "And I just want to say," Candace went on, her eyes sweeping the crowd, Some women are not cut out for family life. They would rather chase job titles than build a home. That is fine, truly. But a man who wants a real family deserves more than being treated like an accessory. My stomach dropped. Several heads turned instinctively toward me. Candace smiled, and it was sharp. Brandon told me once, she said, that for years he felt like he was begging for a baby. Begging for a wife who actually wanted to be present. I told him, "You do not need to beg anyone to love you. You deserve a woman who wakes up wanting to be your partner, your children's mother, not your competition." The room went quiet in that dense, suffocating way. I could hear the soft whir of the air conditioner, the faint scrape of a fork against a plate somewhere in the back. Every pair of eyes felt like a weight on my skin. Brandon shifted uncomfortably. "Candace, that is enough," he murmured, but she patted his arm as if he were a child. "No, it is true," she insisted. "Some people have their careers. Some of us have our families. I am just grateful that when one person walked away, it gave this baby a chance to have parents who are all in." She raised her glass. "To new beginnings, and to never settling for someone who does not value the same things you do." For a moment, I could not breathe. The edges of my vision blurred. I heard the clinking of glasses, the forced cheer in the air, but it all sounded distant, as if I were submerged underwater. My fingers tightened around the gift bag until the thin paper handles dug into my skin. I did not remember making the decision to move. One second I stood there, frozen, and the next I was turning, pushing my way through the crowd, murmuring "excuse me" to people I did not care about offending. The music seemed louder suddenly, the scent of sugary frosting mixed with floral perfume, making my stomach twist. "Alexis!" I heard Brandon call from behind me as I reached the door. "Wait!" I did not wait. I pushed open the exit, letting the heavy door swing behind me with a muffled thud. The evening air outside was cooler than inside the hall, but my face burned. I walked quickly across the parking lot, my heels clicking against the asphalt, my vision fixed on my car. "Alexis, hold on." Brandon's voice sounded closer. I heard his footsteps pounding behind me. "Will you just stop for 1 second?" I reached my car, unlocked it with shaky hands, and pulled the door open. Brandon's hand landed on the frame just above my shoulder, preventing me from closing it. "What was that?" I demanded, turning to face him. My voice came out low and controlled, which surprised me. "You let her stand in there and talk about our marriage like it was a cautionary tale." "I did not know she was going to say all that," he said, running a hand over his head. "She got carried away. You know how emotional she is right now." "Emotional?" I repeated, my eyebrows rising. "She called me a woman who was not cut out for family life. In front of your mother. In front of everyone. And you just stood there. What was I supposed to do?" Brandon asked. "Start an argument at our baby shower? You walking out already made a scene." I laughed, and it sounded strange even to me. "I made a scene? She weaponized our history for applause, and you are worried I made a scene." Brandon sighed. "Look, Alexis, you made your choice. You always put your career first. That is not an attack, it is just the truth. I wanted kids for years. You kept saying the timing was not right. Now it is finally happening for me, and you are mad because it is not with you." The words were so familiar, worn smooth from being repeated over and over through the years, but they still hurt. "I am mad," I said slowly, "because you let someone rewrite our story like I was the villain and you were powerless. You were not powerless when you cheated. You were not powerless when you moved out." He flinched. "We have been over that," he muttered. "You are the one who filed for divorce." "After I found out you had been seeing her for a year," I reminded him. "Do not pretend I left because I wanted freedom. I left because you already had." For a moment, the only sound between us was our breathing and the distant hum of cars on the highway beyond the parking lot. Brandon looked away, his jaw tight. "This is not good for you," he said finally. "Holding on to all this bitterness. It is not attractive." I stared at him. "Attractive," I repeated. "You are worried about whether my pain is attractive." "I am saying," he insisted, spreading his hands, "at some point you have to move on. You are 34, Alexis. You do not have forever to start over. No one wants to sign up for someone else's baggage. You do not want to wake up at 40 alone in a condo surrounded by work awards and think, maybe I should have let go sooner." The words landed with a cold, heavy finality. There it was, the core of what he believed. That my worth was tied to how quickly I could find another man, another family. That my achievements meant nothing if I did not end up with a husband and children to validate them. "Thank you for the warning," I said quietly. It is good to know what you really think. I am trying to help you, he insisted. You are not an easy woman, Alexis. That is why I stayed as long as I did. I kept hoping you would soften. But some men do not want to live their lives in second place to a job. Candace understands that. She wants to build a home, not a resume. I could feel something inside me crystallizing, turning from liquid pain into something sharp and solid. I took a step back, out of the shadow of his arm, and placed my hand on the car door. Here is the difference between us, Brandon, I said. You need someone to make you feel like a man. I learned the hard way that I do not need anyone to make me feel like enough. I will not apologize for wanting more than being someone's emotional support system and unpaid assistant. He scoffed. You say that now, but when you are 40 and alone. If I ever feel lonely, I cut in. I will remember this conversation and remind myself that being alone is better than being with someone who thinks I should be grateful he tolerated me. I got into the car, closed the door firmly, and started the engine. Brandon stepped back, his expression tight with annoyance, and something else that looked suspiciously like uncertainty. I did not wait to see if he tried to speak again. I pulled out of the parking lot and drove away, the hall shrinking in my rearview mirror until it disappeared. It was only when I reached a red light several blocks away that I realized I was shaking. I pulled into a gas station, parked near the edge of the lot, and let my forehead drop against the steering wheel. The tears came then, hot and unwanted, spilling down my cheeks in heavy silence. My phone buzzed in the cup holder. For a second, I considered ignoring it, but the screen lit up with a familiar name, Tanisha, my oldest friend. I wiped my face with the back of my hand and answered. Are you okay? She asked immediately. I have been watching my phone like a hawk since you said you were going. How bad was it? I let out a shaky breath. She gave a speech, I said, about how some women are not cut out for family life and how he finally found someone who believes in him. Tanisha hissed softly. Please tell me you did not throw the cake at her. A weak laugh escaped my throat. No, I just walked out. Good, she said. You do not owe those people a performance. Do you want me to come over? I looked at the time on the dashboard. It was only 8 in the evening. I had work early in the morning. The quarter-end review was approaching, and my team was already stretched thin. I will be okay, I said. I think I just need to go home, shower, and pretend today did not happen. You cannot pretend it did not happen, Tanisha said gently. But you can decide it is not the final word on your life. Do not let his voice become your inner voice, Alexis. That is the problem, I murmured. His voice sounds a lot like my own right now. Then you need a louder one, she replied. You have worked too hard to let a man who needed training wheels for emotional growth define you. Get some sleep. And if you wake up in the middle of the night replaying it, call me. I mean it. I will, I said, even though I knew I would not. Thank you. After we hung up, I sat for a moment longer, staring at the neon sign of the gas station flickering above me. Then I drove home to my apartment in Midtown Atlanta, a space I had chosen because it was walking distance from my office and had floor-to-ceiling windows that made the city feel like a living painting. When I stepped inside, the familiar scent of jasmine from the candle on my console table greeted me. I kicked off my heels, set the untouched gift bag on the kitchen island, and went straight to the bathroom. The hot water of the shower beat against my skin, washing away the day, but not the words. No one wants to sign up for someone else's baggage. You do not want to wake up at 40 alone in a condo surrounded by work awards. He had meant it as a warning. I decided, standing under the water, that I would treat it as a challenge. The next morning, I woke up before my alarm, the city still dim outside my windows. I made coffee, pulled my hair into a sleek ponytail, and put on a navy pantsuit that made me feel like a person who did not crumble in parking lots. By the time I walked into the offices of King Horizon Media at 8:30, I had rebuilt my public composure. King Horizon Media was headquartered in a glass tower overlooking downtown Atlanta, with open floor plan workspaces, glass-walled conference rooms, and art installations that tried a little too hard to prove the company was creative. I had been there for 7 years, working my way up from junior analyst to director of strategic partnerships. My boss, Lawrence King, owned the company. He was in his early 40s, tall, with a calm, observant demeanor that made people sit up a little straighter when he walked into a room. He rarely raised his voice. He did not need to. His presence did the work. I had always respected him professionally. He built the company from a small digital agency into a national player, expanding into streaming content, branded documentaries, and large-scale campaigns. I had never imagined his life would intersect with mine beyond boardrooms and budget meetings. That morning, as I set my bag down at my desk and opened my laptop, my calendar chimed with a reminder. 9 a.m., executive review with Lawrence. I groaned softly. We had scheduled it a week ago to discuss our upcoming partnerships portfolio. Rough night. My colleague, Philip, appeared at the edge of my cubicle, holding his own mug of coffee. He had known me long enough to read 2 lines of stress on my face, and guessed there were 10 more underneath. You do not want to know, I said. But if I survive this day, I am buying myself something expensive. I like that plan, he said. Do you need any backup for the 9 o'clock? No, I replied. This one is just me and him. The joy of being the department head. At 8:50, I walked down the corridor toward Lawrence's office, my tablet in hand with slides ready. His assistant, Marcia, gave me a sympathetic smile as she ushered me in. Good morning, Alexis, Lawrence said from behind his desk. He wore a charcoal suit, no tie, the top button of his shirt undone. He gestured toward the pair of chairs in front of him. How are you? I am well, thank you. I lied smoothly as I Saturday, ready to walk you through the partnership pipeline for next quarter. Before we get into that, he said, closing the laptop on his desk, I wanted to ask, are you actually well? You look like you slept 4 hours and argued with someone for 3 of them. I blinked, taken aback. Is it that obvious? I pay people to read trends and subtle shifts, he said, one corner of his mouth lifting. I am not oblivious to my own team. His face sobered. If you need to reschedule, we can. For a brief second, I considered it. But work had always been my refuge. No, I am okay, I said. I would rather focus on something that makes sense. He studied me for a moment, then nodded. Fair enough. Let us see what you have. For the next 40 minutes, I walked him through the slides, discussing potential brand collaborations, projected revenue, and content strategies. He asked precise questions, the kind that revealed he read everything placed on his desk. By the time we reached the end, my earlier anxiety had been replaced by the familiar satisfaction of doing my job well. This is solid work, he said finally, leaning back. I especially like the multi-platform concept with the wellness brand. You anticipated the algorithm shifts before they hit the mainstream. That is why I keep you here, Alexis. Thank you, I said. His praise felt like a small bomb on a raw day. He hesitated, then said, I heard your divorce was finalized recently. The words were gentle, devoid of gossip. I straightened. Yes, I replied. 6 months ago. I am sorry, he said. Even when it is the right decision, it is still a loss. The acknowledgement, simple, respectful, unlocked something small inside me. Thank you, I said quietly. He tapped a pen against the desk, as if weighing something. If your personal life is making work more difficult, let me know. I value what you bring to this company. I do not want to lose you because you feel like you cannot ask for space. I appreciate that, I said. Right now, work is the one place that feels controllable. His eyes held mine for a moment longer than usual. Sometimes, he said, the thing that feels controllable becomes the thing we hide in. Do not lose yourself trying to be useful. The words echoed faintly of something Tanisha might have said, but coming from him, they carried a different weight. I will keep that in mind, I replied. The meeting ended, and I went back to my day, diving into emails and spreadsheets. But his comment stayed with me, hovering at the edge of my thoughts. Over the next few weeks, the memory of the baby shower dulled, but did not disappear. Brandon's words, however, remained sharp. Every time I saw an empty side of my bed, every time I walked into my quiet apartment, they whispered, You do not want to wake up at 40 alone. One Wednesday afternoon, as I was reviewing a proposal from a production studio in Charlotte, Marcia appeared at my desk. Lawrence would like to see you in the conference room, she said. Now, if you are free. My stomach fluttered. Did he say what it is about? No, she said. But he cleared the next hour on his calendar. I gathered my notebook and followed her. The conference room he chose was smaller than the main boardroom, with a long glass table and a view of the city's skyline. Lawrence stood by the window, hands in his pockets, looking out at the buildings. You wanted to see me? I asked, closing the door behind me. He turned. Yes. Have a seat. His tone was calm, but there was a current underneath I could not quite read. I sat, placing my notebook on the table. Is something wrong with the pipeline projections? No, he said. This is not about that. I have a personal matter to discuss, but it intersects with the company. And with you. My heartbeat quickened. All right. He took the seat across from me, folding his hands. You know that King Horizon is preparing for another investment round, he began. Our valuation is strong, but there have been concerns from the board about leadership stability. I nodded. I had heard the murmurs. Investors liked certainty. A single man running a rapidly expanding empire was not their favorite picture. Some of our potential partners are conservative, he continued. They prefer the image of a family man. They want to know who will be at the table 5 years from now, 10 years from now. They want assurance that my life is not going to implode in a scandal that drags the company down. I frowned slightly. Forgive me, but you do not have any scandals. Not yet, he said dryly. But perception is half of reality in this world. They see an unmarried man in his 40s with no public relationship, and they project instability. He paused, watching my face. I need to change that perception. I followed his logic, but did not yet see where it involved me. You are saying you need to be in a committed relationship. Publicly. I am saying, he corrected, that it would calm a great deal of anxiety if I were married. The word hung in the air between us, heavy and improbable. I blinked. Married, I repeated slowly. Yes, he said. And after a great deal of thought, I have decided that entering into a traditional dating process with someone would be impractical. People would pursue me for the wrong reasons. The time, the complications, the risk of misalignment, it all works against the timeline we are on. I could feel my mind racing ahead, forming an outline of something that made no sense, and yet was forming anyway. What are you proposing? I asked. He held my gaze, his expression calm, as if he were discussing a merger. I am proposing that we enter into a marriage arrangement. You and I. For a second, the world seemed to tilt. My first response was a breathless, almost absurd laugh that I swallowed before it escaped. You cannot be serious. I am, he said. I have considered this for weeks. You are someone I trust. You understand discretion. You already occupy a visible position in the company. It would not appear out of nowhere. I stared at him, trying to reconcile the man who praised my partnership strategy with the man casually suggesting we get married. You barely know anything about my personal life, I said. You think marriage is an item on a checklist? I know more than you think, he replied quietly. I know you are steady under pressure. I know you are ambitious but not ruthless. I know you already navigate this world by my side in boardrooms without asking for attention. And yes, I know you got divorced 6 months ago from a man who made you question your worth. My face heated. How do you know that? I keep informed about the people who hold up this company, he said. I did not have you followed, if that is your concern. But I heard enough to understand that you did not walk away from that marriage because you were incapable of commitment. I shifted in my chair, uncomfortable with how exposed I felt. Even if I believed you were serious, I said slowly, why would you think I would agree? Marriage is not a contract line item, Lawrence. It would be a contract, he said. One with clear terms that protect us both. I am not asking you to fall in love with me on a deadline. I am asking you to consider a partnership that benefits us both materially and practically. What benefits? I asked, partly to stall, partly because I needed to hear the shape of this insane idea. For the company, he said, a stable married image reassures investors. For me personally, it provides structure and a buffer against people with less honorable intentions. For you, there would be financial security beyond what your salary can offer. You would have access to equity, a substantial personal account, and full support for any professional ambitions within or outside the company. So I would be paid to be your wife, I said flatly. You would be compensated, he said. But I do not view you as an employee in this context. I view you as someone whose presence and partnership would strengthen what I am trying to build. A flash of Brandon's voice crossed my mind. No one wants to sign up for someone else's baggage. You do not want to wake up at 40 alone in a condo surrounded by work awards. The contrast between that fearful warning and the calm, deliberate offer in front of me made my head spin. And emotionally, I asked, do you expect anything from me beyond public appearances and polite conversation? I expect respect and honesty, he said. I expect that we will learn to navigate each other's edges. I am not naive enough to think we can script feelings. I am offering stability and alignment first. If something more grows from that, it will be on its own terms. I leaned back, exhaling slowly. Do you realize how this sounds? Like the plot of a movie. Most of my life would sound like that to someone on the outside, he replied. I am not asking for an answer today. I am asking you to think about it. Discuss it with people you trust if you need to, but be discreet. If word leaks that I am considering this and it does not happen, it will damage both of us. How long do I have to decide? I asked. 2 weeks, he said. After that, I will have to pursue another solution. I stood slowly, feeling the room tilt back into place. 2 weeks, I repeated. All right. Alexis, he said as I reached for the door. I paused. Do not say yes because you feel cornered by your past. Say yes only if you can see a version of your future where this makes you stronger, not smaller. I nodded once. If I say anything, it will be because I have thought it through. Back at my desk, I stared at my computer screen, the words on it blurring. The offer sat in my mind like a stone in still water, sending ripples through every assumption I had about what my life could look like. That night, I met Tanisha at a quiet restaurant in downtown Atlanta. We sat in a booth near the back, away from other patrons, plates of pasta cooling between us as I told her everything. When I finished, she put down her fork and stared at me. He asked you what? To marry him, I said. As an arrangement. A partnership. Choose whichever word sounds less strange. She blinked several times. You are serious? Yes. She leaned back, exhaling. Okay. First, I am going to say what I know you are already thinking. This is wild. It is not how most people imagine their second marriage. You think I am actually considering it, I said, more statement than question. You would not have made it to dessert if you were not, she replied. Otherwise you would have said, you will not believe what my boss said, laughed, and then moved on. I stared at the candle flickering between us. What does it say about me if I say yes? That Brandon was right? That no one would want me without a contract. Do not twist it like that, she said firmly. Brandon did not say no one would want you. He said no one would want your baggage. There is a difference. And he was wrong either way. Was he? I asked quietly. Because here we are, and the first man to show serious interest in tying his life to mine is offering terms and benefits like a negotiation. Alexis, she said, her tone softening, do not confuse structure with lack of desire. Some people need clear parameters to feel safe. You know that better than anyone. You live by calendars and contracts. That does not mean you are not worthy of someone who wants you. He did not say he wanted me, I pointed out. He said I am steady, useful, and aligned with his goals. He said he trusts you, she countered. And he respects you. Do you know how rare that is? Besides, let us be honest. What was your plan before this? I looked away. Work. Maybe an occasional date. Try not to think about birthdays. Exactly, she said. So now you have an option on the table that could give you financial power, protection, and room to grow. The question is not, what will people think of me? It is, what do I want my life to look like in 5 years? Does this help you get closer or farther from that? I pressed my lips together. I do not want to be a trophy wife. You would not be, she said. He is not asking you to quit your job and become background furniture. He is offering to tie your professional and personal lives together. You would be a partner in a very real sense. That matters. And what if it never becomes anything emotional? I asked. What if I wake up every day lying beside a man who respects me but never really sees me? Tanisha considered that. Worst case, she said slowly, you spend a few years in a stable, mutually beneficial partnership, build your financial independence to levels most people only dream of, and if it does not work emotionally, you leave with more power than you have now. Best case, you build something real on top of that foundation. You make it sound simple, I murmured. It is not simple, she said. It is complicated and risky. But so is staying still and hoping the universe drops the perfect person at your door while you are busy recovering from the last one. The server came by to refill our water glasses. We fell silent until he left. Whatever you choose, Tanisha added, do not let Brandon's voice be the loudest one in the room. He does not get to decide what kind of love or partnership you deserve. That night, I lay awake in bed, staring at the city lights outside my window. My mind played a split screen. On one side, a future where I said no, stayed the course, rebuilt my life slowly and quietly. On the other, a future where I said yes, signed a contract, stepped into a role that would change everything in ways I could not fully predict. After nearly 2 weeks of thinking, listing pros and cons, and interrogating my own motives, I requested a meeting with Lawrence. When I stepped into his office, he set down the document he had been reading and focused on me. You have decided, he said. Yes, I replied. My heart pounded, but my voice was steady. I have thought about it from every angle I can. I have spoken to my financial advisor. I have spoken to my therapist. I have spoken to my closest friend. I know what I am saying yes to, and what I am not. And, he asked. I will do it, I said. I will marry you. For the first time since I had known him, something like relief flickered clearly across his face. Thank you for trusting me with this, he said quietly. We will make sure you are protected. I am not doing this to be protected, I said. I am doing this because I believe I can build something with you that is bigger than what I can build alone. But I will not disappear into it. I need that to be clear. It is, he said. We will have lawyers draft the agreement. You should have your own representation. I will have Marcia coordinate. Over the next month, my life became a series of signatures and fittings. 2 legal teams crafted an agreement that outlined financial provisions, property arrangements, expectations, and exit clauses. It felt surreal, reading a document that turned marriage into a legal architecture, but it also made a certain kind of sense. There were clauses about privacy, media handling, and conflict of interest. There were provisions ensuring that if we parted ways after a certain period, I would leave with equity and assets that could never be taken back. It was the opposite of my first marriage, where I had left with little more than a bruised heart and my portion of the savings. Our wedding was small, private. A judge at a courthouse in Atlanta, followed by a quiet dinner at a rooftop restaurant. Tanisha stood beside me as my witness. Philip and Marcia came as well. There were no flowing gowns or elaborate vows, just clear-eyed promises to respect and support each other. As I signed the marriage certificate, a strange calm settled over me. This was not the love story I had imagined when I was 25. But maybe, I thought, the stories we end up living are not the ones we write in our heads, but the ones we choose when our hearts are no longer naive. The public announcement came a week later. A carefully timed press release noted that Lawrence King had recently married longtime executive and trusted partner, Alexis Morgan. There were no photos from our private ceremony, just a professional headshot of me and a statement about shared vision and stability. The reactions were immediate and intense. Internally, there were whispers in the hallways, stunned conversations half-muted when I walked by. Externally, industry publications speculated, investors sent congratulatory messages, and brand partners expressed relief that the company's leader now fit their preferred narrative of stability. The first time I saw Brandon after the announcement was at a charity gala in Charlotte 2 months later. King Horizon was sponsoring a literacy initiative, and several local business owners had been invited to attend. As I stood near the bar talking to a group of donors, I felt a familiar presence behind me. Alexis, he said, his voice threading through the music and conversation. I almost did not recognize you. I turned. Brandon stood there in a dark suit that did not fit quite as well as it used to, his tie slightly askew. Beside him, Candace wore a fitted navy dress, her baby bump now gone, replaced by a soft curve and tired eyes. Brandon, I said calmly. Candace. Candace looked me up and down, taking in my floor-length black gown, the diamond bracelet on my wrist, and the reserved but warm expression on my face. So it is true, she said. You actually did it. If you are referring to my marriage, I replied. Yes. I did. Brandon forced a smile that did not reach his eyes. I have to say, Alexis, I did not see this coming. Lawrence King? That is quite an upgrade. You always said I should aim higher, I said. I took your advice. His jaw tightened. People are talking, saying you married him for money. For status. People talked when I stayed with you, too, I said. It turns out people will have opinions no matter what I do. The difference now is that their opinions do not pay my bills or decide my value. Candace crossed her arms. It must be convenient, she said, to skip all the messy parts of dating and jump straight into the billionaire's wife position. Some of us had to build our lives from scratch. You built your life on a foundation that belonged to someone else, I said, my tone even. You started your relationship with him while he was still married. That is not scratch. That is theft. Her face flushed. You were never going to give him what he wanted, she snapped. You were too busy chasing promotions. And now, I replied, I have a partner who not only supports my promotions, but helps me create my own table instead of begging for a seat at someone else's. I let my gaze drift around the room, at the banners bearing the King Horizon logo, at the donors who had come because of the company I now helped lead. I am exactly where I need to be. Brandon cleared his throat. Actually, he said, I was hoping to talk to you about something. Business-related. I raised an eyebrow. Business. My shop has been doing some work with a local production team, he said. We are looking to expand our visibility, maybe develop a branded series about custom car builds. Someone mentioned King Horizon might be interested in partnering with local businesses for content. I thought, you thought you could bring a proposal to the wife of the man who runs the company you want to benefit from. I finished for him. Interesting strategy. He shifted. I thought we could put the past behind us and work together like adults. For a moment, I saw us as we had once been. Two young people in a small apartment, arguing over mortgage payments and vacation plans. I remembered the nights I had stayed up helping him write business proposals, the weekends I had spent handing out flyers for his shop. I had been his silent partner long before Candace arrived. Send the proposal through the proper channels, I said. If it fits our strategic goals, it will be evaluated like any other pitch. My team will decide based on merit, not history. So you will not even give us a little nudge? Candace asked. After everything? I met her gaze. You already had your advantage, I said. You had him while he still belonged to me. That is all you are going to get. I turned and walked away before they could respond, my head held high. Across the room, Lawrence watched me approach, his eyes curious. Everything all right? He asked when I reached him. Yes, I said. Just closing a very old chapter. He studied my face, then offered his arm. Shall we meet the donors from Charlotte? They are eager to speak with you. We shall, I said, sliding my hand through his arm. As the night unfolded, I found myself moving through the room with a newfound steadiness. I spoke confidently about our initiatives, listened to stories from community leaders, and watched Lawrence as he listened to me, not as a prop by his side, but as a partner whose voice mattered. Later, in the car back to the hotel, he loosened his tie and looked over at me. You handled that conversation well, he said. I assume he is the one who made you question whether being alone at 40 was worse than being unhappy at 34. I smiled faintly. He is the one. But I think I finally answered that question for myself tonight. And, Lawrence asked, being alone is not the worst thing that can happen to a person, I said. The worst thing is believing you are nothing without someone who does not know how to value you. He nodded slowly. I am glad you are beginning to see what I saw when I made you that offer. I turned my head, studying his profile in the passing streetlights. What did you see? Someone who had spent years holding everyone else together, he said. Someone who did not yet realize how powerful she would be when she finally started holding herself together first. The words settled over me like a warm blanket. I looked out the window at the city lights of Charlotte sliding by, and for the first time in a long time, I did not feel like I was racing against an invisible clock. Months turned into a year. Our marriage, which had begun as a carefully structured agreement, evolved in ways neither of us had fully anticipated. We learned each other's rhythms and silences. We argued over decisions sometimes, but the fights were clean, bounded by respect. There were nights we worked late in the home office, papers spread across the desk, our shoulders brushing as we leaned over reports. There were quiet Sunday mornings when we sat on the balcony with coffee, talking not about projections, but about childhood memories, fears, and hopes we had once believed we were too busy to have. The first time he reached across the bed and took my hand in the middle of the night, I did not pull away. The first time he kissed me with something more than formality, I did not analyze it. I let myself feel it. I did not know exactly when I stopped thinking of our marriage as an arrangement and started thinking of it as simply mine. But one evening, as I walked into a boardroom and saw him waiting at the head of the table, his eyes meeting mine with wordless understanding, I realized the shift had already happened. Brandon and Candace's proposal never made it through our internal vetting. My team found inconsistencies in their financials, gaps in their production plan, and a lack of clear audience strategy. There is potential if they reorganize, Philip said, but right now their foundation is too shaky. I signed the rejection letter as Director of Strategic Partnerships. It was short, professional, and offered no personal commentary. I did not need revenge written into policy. My life, standing on its own, was enough of an answer. Years later, when I turned 40, I woke up in a house that overlooked the city, sunlight spilling across a bed I did not have to face alone. Lawrence was already awake, reading a report on his tablet, his glasses sliding down his nose. When he saw me open my eyes, he smiled. Happy birthday, he said. Do you feel alone in a condo surrounded by work awards? I laughed, the sound full and genuine. Not even a little. As I lay there, listening to the quiet hum of our life, I thought back to that parking lot outside the baby shower, to Brandon's warning disguised as concern. I wished I could reach back through time and place a hand on that younger version of myself, standing there with tears in her eyes and doubt in her chest. I would tell her that one day, she would sit at tables where her voice carried weight that had nothing to do with the ring on her finger. I would tell her that she would build a life not in spite of her standards, but because of them. I would tell her that being alone had never been her greatest risk. Settling for less than she deserved had been. But time does not bend that way. All I could do was live the proof. I rolled onto my side, reached for Lawrence's hand, and squeezed. Outside, the city moved forward, unaware of the woman who had once been told she would be alone and who had chosen again and again to define for herself what it meant to be loved, valued, and unafraid. If you enjoyed this story, please like, comment, and share this video with your friends. Subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss a powerful story drop.